witches!
Hello, welcome back.
Today is a history episode that you should have gotten like a month ago, but life happens.
Shit happens.
Yeah. So, I was originally going to dive into the Salem Witch Trials. I bought the book The Witches by Stacy Schiff, and I was like, here we go. But before I started diving into that book, I wanted to learn a little bit more about like the Puritan movement. And when I started diving into that, I found a whole different witch trials that happened before the Salem Witch Trials. So I went back even farther because this was like the first witch trials in like the colonies of what would become the United States. And this one happened in Hartford, Connecticut. So it's a little bit earlier and not nearly as big, but still super tragic. And very similar to what happened in Salem. So it starts out with one woman claiming that Satan had caused her to speak with a Dutch accent.
Did they have Dutch settlers?
They did, but apparently not in Connecticut. I don't know. Another neighbor said that she saw her neighbors transform into large black dogs. And several people claimed that they saw witches dancing with the devil at night. It's very interesting how when something is started like this and like accusations are made, all of a sudden witnesses come out of the woodwork. And half the time, like it even happens with like well-publicized trials. Yeah, it happens like with well-publicized trials and things. Like if you follow true crime at all the time there will be like these witnesses that come out of the woodwork, and then their stories will end up being proven false. Like that didn't happen. They just wanted their like 15 minutes of fame or to be involved in the case somehow. Because people are wild. Like that's insane to me. Especially because a lot of the times those types of things in more modern times will really fuck up an investigation and like can totally send the police in the wrong direction. And it's just wild. And then when those people are caught, half the time nothing happens. But honestly, I feel like that should be an obstruction charge because like you literally lied. You came in here and knew you were lying. But I digress. We are in 1662 right now, and that is not a thing. Obstruction charges were probably not a thing then. So between 1662 and 1663, 12 people were accused. Oh my goodness. Were accused and 4 were executed. The accused were Goody Ayers, Judith Varlett, Nathaniel and Rebecca Greensmith, Andrew and Mary Sanford, Mary Barnes, John and Elizabeth Blackleach, Catherine Palmer, James Wakely, and Elizabeth Seeker. The majority of the men that were accused because they stood by their wives when they were accused. And instead of just like giving them up to the mob, they stood by them and then were accused of witchcraft themselves because, what the fuck? Which I feel like is a little different from the Salem witch trials, because I feel like the men did not, some of them did, but for the most part, the men did not stand by their wives when they were accused.
No, I think only like 2 out of the 19 did, because I think most of them were single or widowed.
Yes.
But I think like maybe 1 or 2 of them actually had like a supportive husband in any way. They died too.
Yeah. Yep.
Or got
banished.
Which
is
one of the 2.
Wild, because like that's the person that you supposedly, well, I guess love wasn't much a part of marriage back then. But still, that's your partner. That's the person you've lived with, you're raising children with, and like you're just gonna throw them to the wolves. Yeah, like,
right? Fuck you, bitch. I'm down.
Right. Which some of them maybe were like, it was a horrible marriage, and so they were like, bye. But like, still,
it's fine. Will's coming down with me. And if he comes in here and he's like, "No, I'm not," I'm gonna be like, "I'm gonna take you with."
Yeah, you're going with me. It's not
You're
actually an
too
option.
too bad.
Oh my goodness. Well, Brittany would probably get accused before I would because she's black, so
Well, you're
it
redhead.
happens.
What do you
It's
mean?
true. Red, yeah, it's true.
Abomination.
I know. Oh
It's
my
fine. We're all
gosh.
going down together.
Um, okay, in this witch trial, there is or has been discovered some evidence that some of these accusations were greed based. Um, the unmarried women, um, or even the married women that did not have male offspring, um, would have inherited their husband's estates. But if a woman died before her husband with no male heir, when the male died, his property would go to the community. So that was a thing. Like sometimes it was like, let's accuse this person of being a witch so we can have their stuff. Um, which is super shitty because, like, seriously.
Can you just imagine like high school, like all the petty drama and like
Yeah.
backstabbing? It's like that bitch is a
Yes.
witch, and then everyone just gangs up on them. Listen,
Yes.
if we could have a like witch trial esque high school drama, I'd probably watch that. I'd be like, yeah, I totally would. I, I'd be like, yeah, that could have been my high school.
Right? Oh
Because
my god, that would have definitely been my high school.
yeah, I feel like high school. I mean, the difference with us between a lot of other people is that we went to smaller high schools. Like I graduated with 152, and like that was it.
Oh, like people.
Yeah, and I
My
had
graduating class, there was 92 of us. Yeah.
yeah, and there was like 600 total in my high school, and our numbers were so dwindling that they
Yeah.
even considered adding like the junior high to it because of how small it was. So
Mine
like
was junior, senior high. The junior high and the high school were in the same building.
yeah. So like we had two different buildings, but I could just see it like the the prowling, the
Yes.
backstabbery, the oh you're my
The
best friend, that
lying
bitch
and
is
the
a cunt. Like yeah,
yes.
I could see
Ugh.
it. I mean, it's modern day witch hunts, just for
Yes.
general bullying. That's what it is. That's what it was. Bullying.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. So okay. The really beginning of this witch trial, witch mania, I don't know what you want to call it. In started in late March 1662. John and Bethia Kelly were grieving over their 8-year-old daughter, Elizabeth. Elizabeth had been fine just a few days before. Um, she had been out and about, and a neighbor brought her home, and that neighbor was Goodwife or Goody Heiress. Um, the parents, because Elizabeth suddenly fell ill, this reminds me a lot of like the changelings, like when they're like the fae came and possessed my child, but instead they're blaming their neighbor. They were convinced that Goody Heiress had possessed their daughter, which is just weird to begin with. But um, they testified in Goody Heiress's trial and said that their daughter first took ill the night after she returned home, and that she kept screaming, "Father, Father, help me, help me. Goody Heiress is upon me. She chokes me. She kneels on my belly, and she will break my bowels. She pinches me. She will make me black and blue." Uh, what? So it's possible that, you know, Goody Aris did something to this little girl, and in her fever, she was like explaining what happened. It's also possible that her parents just made this shit up. Because what? So after
Maybe
her
they had
death,
a better farm than that family. Maybe
you
they had
know,
better things than that family.
you know, I can't help you.
Jealousy makes you do insane things.
Yes. So Elizabeth dies, and then accusations of witchcraft fly, and hysteria grips Hartford, a town that a generation before had witnessed the first execution of a suspected witch in the American colonies, um, which was Alice Young of Windsor, Connecticut, who was sent to the gallows in Hartford. Um, it was in Hartford's Meeting House Square, which is now the site of Connecticut's old state house. So, if you've ever been there, there was a witch or a woman murdered there. So,
Actually, the person that I used to work with at PetSmart back in Indiana, and the person who moved to Charleston that I visited that made me want to move here, actually lived in Hartford, Connecticut for a bit because of the military. I
all
was
right.
like, oh, oh, did she
Right?
know about this?
It'd be interesting to see or to find out if there was like, I don't know how big Hartford is now, but like if there's like a
Yeah, I don't
museum or
know.
something.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
and she's Wicca too. Like she follows Wicca.
okay.
She actually was one of the first people. Like I saw her ring, and because of like my religious background, I was like, "Is that the devil symbol or whatever?" And then she was like, "No, it's a pentagram. It's protection. It's this." And like, this is what I follow. This is what my grandma and my mom follows. And I was like, "Oh, that's cool." And so then I started like researching it more. And so yeah, it's kind of
Yeah.
what got me into it.
That's
Thanks, Emily.
that's awesome.
Anyways, yeah,
Yeah.
full
Yeah.
circle. All right, go ahead.
Okay. Uh so yeah, so it was actually Elsa Young. I think I said Alice. I misspoke. Um was the one that was executed in Hartford's Meeting House Square in 1647. 30 years later, her daughter Alice was also accused, but that was in Springfield, Massachusetts. Alice did not end up being hung, but she the records are like sketchy about what actually happened to her, but she did receive a punishment. Um Witchcraft was one of the 12 capital crimes decreed by Connecticut's colonial government in 1642. The legal precedent was cited by the devoutly Puritan colonists, um, was of a divinely higher order. Biblical passages such as Exodus 22:18, "Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live," and Leviticus 20:27, "A man also or a woman that hath a familiar spirit or that is a wizard shall surely be put to death." So again, we're cherry picking the Bible and deciding what we want to follow. We don't want to follow,
Listen. Oh
and
my
just
god.
committing
Okay.
murder because of it.
You say it, you said wizards. So this is what the KKK calls themselves, like the higher up people, wizards. But they spout religious bullshit nonstop. So like
Which huh?
I'm just saying.
I love all of the hate groups because that's what that is. So all of the hate groups that hide behind religion, because I'm just like, what? Especially Christianity, because Christianity, like at its core, is all about love thy neighbor, helping, and like being a community. And so many groups use it as a weapon, and that is not what it's about. Um, yeah, just yeah,
Good times, yeah.
yeah. I love it. Um,
And so many people wonder why a lot of people aren't religious anymore. And it's like, bitch, what?
right, like, well,
It's like,
so
okay,
many
I
people
was
are
persecuted.
persecuted. Yes, yes. So many people are persecuted by their
Get it?
family members because of
Yes.
religion. And it's like, that
And
is
it's
not
like,
what this is supposed to be.
I thought blood was thicker than water. Damn.
No, it's, I mean, scientifically, I suppose, but that phrase is stupid.
Yeah, I pick my water 9 times out of 10.
Yeah.
I'm
Yes.
dehydrated.
Oh my gosh. Don't even get me started. Okay, we could go down a whole tangent. Not that we probably won't have time, because this is not going to be a super long episode, because there's not as much happened. But basically, Goody Aris was, you know, she's still on trial right now. She's not dead yet, but she is basically convicted and living probably in some sort of squalor prison area. And then all of a sudden, Anne Cole suddenly becomes afflicted. She's shaking violently and spouting blasphemy. A direct quote is, "Taken with strange fits, wherein she, or rather the devil, as 'tis judged making use of her lips, held a discourse for a considerable time." Cole blamed her bewitchment on a neighbor, Rebecca Greensmith, who is described as lewd, ignorant, and considerably aged. And many others were already suspecting her of witchcraft. So basically, she was different. She was older, single. They call her lewd and ignorant, but that kind of makes me think that maybe she was just a feminist, basically, and not willing to bend to what the society wanted her to be. Maybe she wasn't into the Puritan movement because it's fucking psycho.
Did they call them
So
spinsters or something like that?
yeah.
So that's
Because
probably
I
what
don't
she
think
was.
she was a widow. She wasn't ever married, as far as I could find. But basically, she was weird. She was different. So she was naturally accused. And then, because everyone's panicking, the people who are being accused start accusing others or their spouses of being the true witches. So there's like this vicious like circle happening where neighbors are calling out neighbors. Goody Aris' husband was thought to be trying to save his wife, started accusing the Greensmiths, which were a husband and wife who were accused. And the crazy thing was, and this reminds me kind of the Hocus Pocus 2, where Winifred's like, yeah, I am a witch, bitch. Like, Greensmith, which I think her name was, ooh, I don't remember what her first name was. Let me scroll back up for a moment. Rebecca Greensmith. I wanted to say Rachel, and I knew that wasn't right. Admitted to having a familiarity with the devil, and said that at Christmas they would have a merry meeting to form a covenant. So she was kind of like, yeah, I am a witch and I do worship the devil. Like, but sometimes I almost wonder if that wasn't like, oh yeah, I'm a witch, I worship the devil, like, you know, like being sarcastic, and it ended up like implicating herself and her husband. She also said that her and her husband met in the woods with 7 other witches. She named names. She said Goody Aris, Mary Sanford, and Elizabeth Seeger. And they met in the woods and like had a ritual. It's just, this whole situation is just wild, because like I can see this happening. Like, you look at your own life and you think about like even like work situations, like drama. People are like, no, I didn't do that, this person did that. Like,
I'm telling you right now, that is everything I deal with at work. Like, well, this person did this. I don't give a fuck who did it.
right, that's not
Fix
what we're
it.
talking about right now. Like,
I'm
and people
saying this happened. I don't give
and
a
it
fuck who
needs to
did
be
it. I don't give a fuck
corrected.
how did it. I'm just saying it needs to be fixed right now. Well, I didn't do it. I don't care. Go fix it. You're the
Right,
one
like
right
that's
here,
not
right
what I
now over
asked.
here. Go
Oh my
do
gosh.
it.
Yes,
Well,
and
I
it's
didn't leave him
just,
like that.
like pettiness and drama and ridiculous. But it's very much a witch hunt. And a lot of the times, innocent people end up getting in trouble or are shoved out based on this. But now we're starting to get into the actual trial and some of the punishment. Two of the suspects, some accounts say it was the Greensmiths, were subjected to the swimming test. Their hands and feet were bound and they were cast into the water to test the theory that they were witches are unable to sink. They did not sink because, that's not how science works. And after they were tried, they were indicted, quote, for not having the fear of God before thine eyes, thou hast entertained familiarity with Satan and the grand enemy of God and mankind, and by his help has acted things in a preternatural way. The court's verdict was, according to the law of God and the established law of this commonwealth, thou deserves to die. So Rebecca Greensmith confessed to all these different things. Nathaniel Greensmith did not. He was, until the end, saying he was innocent. And they both ultimately were hung. And then Mary Sanford was also hung. And after those 3 executions, Ann Cole, the little girl that was like, I'm having fits, all of a sudden was restored to health. So something that one of those 3 people had or had done was what was causing Ann Cole to do all these accusations. So they were the first 3 deaths. I believe there was one more execution in this situation. But it was not Goody Eris. She fled Hartford. And Seeger, what was her first name? Elizabeth Seeger, was finally convicted not long after Eris fled. This was in 1665, and the governor reversed the verdict in the following year. So she was convicted and then released. The last execution was Mary Barnes, who was actually from Farmington, Connecticut, but was swept up in the region's witch hunt and executed. These were the 4 executions of suspected witches in Hartford, and those were the last in Connecticut. Descendants of some of these 11 people who were accused and convicted are much like the descendants of the Salem Witch Trials victims, seeking posthumous pardons and apologies. That has not happened yet for them. As it started to happen, I believe some of the Salem Witch Trials victims have been now pardoned and cleared. But after those 4 deaths, the colonial governor, John Winthrop Jr., began to question the value of evidence in the witch trials, as well as the possible agendas of the witnesses. Makes sense. As a result, he established a more objective criteria for witch trials that required at least 2 witnesses for each alleged act of witchcraft, and in some cases, he personally intervened and overturned or reversed verdicts. So, for once, there was a good guy in the government who stepped in and was like, I don't think we're doing the right thing here, and changed the laws in an appropriate way.
I think the only problem with that is it's like, okay, well, if you got 2 best friends ganging up on this one bitch, and then they're just like,
Yeah.
all right, here you go.
It's still easy to happen, easy to fuck it up, but
I think that's just life in general, though.
Yeah.
I mean,
there's always a way to make it happen the way you want it to happen. Especially because, even if there wasn't 2 best friends, they could be like, if you don't agree with me and say you saw this happen, then I'm going to say you're a witch. And, it'd be very easy to especially like seeing these things happen. But it's crazy. Like, it is wild to me that we as humans, as intelligent creatures, some of us, intelligent beings, we don't look at history and like not repeat it. Like, this wild shit happens in Hartford, Connecticut, and here in just a few years later, an even worse situation the same way happens in Salem. And just over and over again, we do the same things over and over again. Like the genocide of the Native Americans, and then there was the Holocaust, and then the Japanese internment camps. Like, it's just
History doesn't repeat itself,
slavery.
Brandy.
It does. It does over and over
It
again
doesn't.
because people
It
are
doesn't.
fucking
No.
stupid. 9 times out of 10, it's because people are stupid and men can't keep their dicks in their pants.
No, that's not true. Men are divine beings sent to us from Jesus Christ himself.
He was a carpenter and a drunk, okay? He
How
was
dare
a
you?
human.
You're going to hell.
Probably. Because, you know, I'm probably going to be reincarnated right back into another small town in Midwest America. So
it's fine. You're going to go to hell in a rainbow handbasket.
I will happily go.
Got flags and streamers and little noisemakers all the way down. I'm going!
Oh my gosh. But that is basically the end of the Hartford Witch Trials. The execution stopped, but the witch hunts continued because Puritans, you know. So, like I said, this was going to be a short episode. I didn't realize how short it was going to be. But I felt like I had to cover this one before I could dive into the Salem Witch Trials because it happened first. So,
I hit the end of my drink. So it's like
the
protein powder that's mixed in and like the coffee grounds that seeped through.
Gross. All right.
Okay, I think I'm done.
That was quite a face that you made. Anyway, so I'm going to start diving into the book The Witches next and dive into the Salem Witch Trials. But once I started researching, I felt like I had to cover the Hartford Witch Trials first. And eventually I'm going to move on to like European witch trials because, you know.
There's probably a ton of those.
Yeah. And there's quite a few really interesting. I think there was one as recent as like 1960. So there's lots to cover there.
Yeah. I guess we'll cover when we get there.
We will get there eventually. So anyway.
Okay. Until next time.
Bye.